Yo, 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 ladies and gentlemen, is another wonderful episode of SelzSpeaks. Listen, I have the absolute honor to introduce to you guys one of the greatest pianists I know, Haitian born, New York based, one of the baddest men on keys. I could say so much, but I'm gonna just go straight to it. I have the honor of presenting to you guys Nerva Altino. Talk to the people, bro.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's good to be here. So good to see you. Good to talk to you. And thank you for those words, man. Feelings are safe for you and your pops and uncle. So it's a family thing, man.
I appreciate it. Listen, so for people who may not know you, which might be a surprise, this is one half of the Altino brothers, one of the most successful piano tandems out there. And the fact that he's Haitian gives me even more pride and joy. This guy is like family to me. You know what I mean? The legacies and the roots run deep. So for the people that don't know you, who don't know what you do, you know what I mean? Give people a little bit synopsis of things you've accomplished, what it is that you do. Talk to us.
All right. Well, as Sel said, one half of the Altino brothers, we are a piano duo team. We both graduated from the Manhattan School of Music, born in Haiti, grew up in Queens, New York, we also ministers of music at a couple of churches as well. So music is a full-time thing for us. We've traveled all over the place to perform concerts, as well as we have church ministries that we lead as well.
That's what's up. That's what's up. So now we talking about piano. Like how did it all start? What was the origin?
Well, for me, piano started with my father, man. My father was the man. He was a church pianist back in Haiti. He went to this church called Bethel Church in Port-au-Prince. Mm-hmm. And he used to play there from the 50s and 60s. So he said that ever since I was a baby, I showed a lot of interest in wanting to play the piano. So I remember one time, I was about 3 years old. He was playing for a Wednesday night prayer meeting. I ran from my mother's lap and ran straight to him while he was at the piano. I remember him sitting me down right next to him. And I was just taking this all in, man. So our family was poor at the time, too. So we didn't get a chance. He couldn't, my father left Haiti in the mid-70s. So he couldn't teach us at that time. So, like I said, we were poor, so we couldn't take lessons until we arrived to the U.S.
Okay. So now, when it came to lessons, was it something like you wanted to do, or you kind of had to be forced into it?
Man, both my brother and I, Robinson, that's his name. We were obsessed with piano, bro. It was I can't even describe it. I remember after my father started teaching us, as soon as we arrived here in New York, just a few months into, the experience, my learning experience, and with my lessons, I had this dream where I was playing real fast and things like that. These fast fingers, man. I woke up the next day, and it was just a dream. It did something to me. I'm like, yo, this is not real. So I just, worked. I was obsessed. My brother and I used to fight to practice. Whereas, here a lot of other students, piano, young piano students, the parents have to make them practice. Mm-hmm. But we used to fight to practice, and my parents would have to come get us and tell us, okay, you take this time, you take that time, and then get us off the piano at night so we can go to bed to go to school in the morning.
Wow. So for my musicians that's gonna watch this, because I know they're gonna want to know, like, how much were you practicing? What were you practicing?
Oh man. Well, when we first started, we had no intentions of becoming professional pianists. Mm-hmm. We wanted to be, do it as a hobby. To be honest, we didn't know that you could become a professional musician.
Yeah.
Or piano. We'd see stars on TV and things like that, popular music. But we were exposed to a lot of church music. And we wanted to be church musicians. And then when I was about 12 years old, I saw this guy, man, named Andre Watts, black concert pianist. And that just transformed our mindset.
Yeah.
And we could really do something and take this thing far. So we became obsessed with it. So when I first started learning piano, I was just practicing maybe about an hour a day. Mm-hmm. And then after I saw Andre Watts from about, I say 13 on, I was averaging about 3 hours every night at the piano. So I had another teacher at that time, and we would practice, mid-level piano pieces, and eventually I started learning Beethoven sonatas, Chopin etudes, Litz, and all those things. So so once I started learning those pieces, I increased my practice to about 4 or 5 hours a day. I admit I don't advise any kids to do this, but I used to cut school of practice.
Hey, listen, like Kobe wasn't interested in school. He was in the gym. When you do what you do.
Bro, exactly.
So okay, so now we in those young formative years, you practicing a whole lot, and then now, if I'm not mistaken, you go to college for this now.
Yeah, I went to college.
And before we even go there, like, you're one of the few very gifted, talented musicians that I know that like thought to take, okay, I'm doing piano as a teenager, let me go and do it in school. Because like even my pops coming in, you know, there's just certain things he didn't know about the States and stuff like that. So while it would have been the easiest, clearest thing, you know what I mean, kind of knowing how to navigate and being one of the first Haitians in the States, he didn't know, but you went straight to it. So what was that experience like?
It was a bit controversial for my community because you know the stigma on musicians, or why you gonna major in music, you're gonna be broke and things like that. What you gonna do with it? But you know, my parents, my father in particular, was very concerned because his goals were for one of us, between me and my brother, to be a doctor, another one to be a pastor. I wanted no part of either one. All right, music was what I wanted. Music was what I loved. And I told him, I said, look, man, if I'm not going to major in piano and music in college, I'm not going to college.
Right.
And he realized that I was serious about it. So he supported me wholeheartedly. Both my parents did. And, you know, people in our community, in our church community in particular, were in their ears, tell him, don't let him go study piano. He's not going to, you know, be able to earn a living. How's he going to live? How's he going to support his family, and so forth and so on. So but my father eventually, once he realized how serious I was with it, he let me do it. Let me do it. Yeah.
And so where did you go and what were you studying? Like your degree?
I went to Atlantic Union College. It's a small Christian Adventist Christian college in South Lancaster, Massachusetts. I went there and studied as a piano major, piano performance major. But while there, you know those curriculums in school, you got to take conducting and all theory and all those things, which were fine. I also studied organ, but I didn't major in pipe organ, but I studied organ with first my teacher, Keston Robertson, and eventually with another gentleman by the name of William Ness, who was the minister of music at the college church.
Right.
So, but my main focus was always piano performance. Yeah.
So and you know, that's another part that, you know, I mean, I think people looking on the outside may not see as often that you are mean on the organ. So how did organ come into play?
Yeah. Organ came into play from I was early teens. You know, I saw my piano teacher, a gentleman by the name of George Davis, who was music director at the Linden Assembly Adventist. And I'm going to tell you this, your pops don't know this. I used to watch him too, because my brother and I were Pathfinders at Maranatha. And then while we were members at Linden SDA Church, so between like every month, we would be at Maranatha about twice a month, and then we'd be at Linden the other time. So I remember we had Pathfinder days, and those Christmas cantatas. This gentleman who was music director at the time at Maranatha named Jonas Jules.
Right.
He used to call your pops to come and play the cantatas. And I remember the dad playing that organ. And I said, I want to do that. He doesn't even know that. I don't think he knows that. But me and my brother were watching him, man. So it was between him and George Davis, who was Mr. Music at Linden. They got me interested in playing organ. But it wasn't something I took seriously, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I just did it for church. And then when I got to college, I quit playing the organ. I quit playing the organ for like 2 years. And then I started back again doing my junior year and started doing it more seriously. To be honest, I didn't learn it properly as a teen also. So I had to relearn how to play the organ at 20 years old. And, you know, it took a lot of hard work. So here I am now in college. I was averaging about 6 hours a day at the piano. And then practicing the organ 2 to 3 hours every night.
Nice.
So to really, you know, get my skills up.
Wow. And, you know, I talk to young guys sometimes and I be telling them like, look, you know, I know there's the stigma about musicians being broke and all that stuff, but my only thing is my stance has always been bad musicians are broke. And if you do the things that look popular, like I know Hammond is fun and you know
Yeah.
it's got the stereotype to it. But I
Mm-hmm.
told him, like, listen, if you really want to make good money, you got to learn pipe organ because that's where the bread is at.
That's where it is, man. That's where it is. Before I became music director of churches, I used to play. I used to be an organist for churches.
Yeah.
But when I became music director at a church where I had to play pipe organ, that's when I began to get a salary. Prior to that, I would play the piano or keyboard or whatever for churches where I was not the music director, and they'd pay a few $100s here and there. It was back in the '90s and so forth. But when I actually became a music director at a church that actually had a real pipe organ, that's when I began to earn a salary as an organist and music director.
And then the thing I also know about you too is you also are able to teach parts in choirs. So that like skills and abilities that kind of just came along as you just kept doing it, or you were a little bit more intentional about that?
Well, I mean, I especially working, in church, you have gospel music. A lot of times those songs aren't scored.
Yeah.
And I'm old school, man. I like to score things by hand.
Yeah.
So I would just listen to the song and draft out the parts. I just don't know how people, memorize these parts and teach them. And then you go back and teach them again. Because if I do that, I'm probably not going to teach the same exact part. I'm not going to remember everything unless I go back and listen to it all over again. Yeah. Whereas if I score it, I have it, and I don't have to go back and study a recording to score something. So yeah, I score everything, especially when I work with choirs and praise groups, praise teams, and score out the parts. So being able to read, you have that advantage. You're not relying on your ear so much, where you could just have it right there. It makes things a lot easier, at least from my standpoint.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you because even me, I won't go as far as scoring things, but like I have like a little book because I'm like always learning all these crazy gospel songs. And I decided a long time ago, I ain't gonna try to remember everything because it's just too much. So I'll just write my measures with the chords and stuff like that. That joint saved me because like 6 months later, we'll do that song we ain't done.
Right, exactly.
Pull out the book, I'm good to go. You know what I mean? Exactly. I think that's sometimes the advantage of like, the discipline of learning classical. Because, I think it's a very, in our community, it's a very overlooked genre. I don't think it gets the type of respect that it needs. But like I try to explain to a lot of upcoming, pianists and even musicians in general that like a lot of your favorite musicians, Art Tatum, Oscar Peterson, you know what I mean? Even, Corey Henry, to stay contemporary, these guys started with that classical foundation, which gives you your hands, you know what I mean?
It does. And it's one of the things I admire about you as well, because you have that foundation. Here you go. You majored in classical and you got your master's in jazz.
Yeah.
So I mean, that level of musicality, man, that's something that's rare. So, and as you said, man, I try to talk to a lot of young musicians, and a lot of times they don't want any part of it. They just want to learn, the nice gospel chords, nice jazz chords, and a lot of times they don't focus on dexterity.
Right.
So where you have the classical training, you don't have to become a concert pianist. Right. What the classical training does, it gives you, like you said, that foundation.
Right.
You learn skills. You develop your fingers.
Right.
And so when you have those classical chops, man, it makes everything so much easier for you. I mean, I wish younger musicians would realize this, but they don't want to listen. I've tried talking to a lot of them, so that's why my students, I tell them, listen, you study with me, you go and learn the foundation. Otherwise, we're not going to do it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Do you find yourself now in like 2023, sometimes having that struggle of connecting with that younger generation musically?
Yeah, very much so. I think because I don't specialize in gospel music. I'm not a jazz musician per se. I just dabble in those things. But my main, my specialized area is the classical genre. Even if I arrange church songs or piano solo, it's always going to be predominantly towards the classical style with a little bit of jazz and blues here and there.
Right.
But so because of that, and if I'm sure you know this, but gospel is constantly evolving.
That's right.
You know, now you've got the neo gospel sound that's come into play. So, and guys like me now, it seems like we're moving further and further away from that contemporary sound because so in those kids can't relate to that sound.
Right.
But one thing I've noticed though is some of these contemporary songs like Maverick City and Hillsong, all those things, they're very basic.
Yeah.
And those basic chords now seem to be shifting more towards a classical sound, even though, you know, you talk about 1, 4, 5, 6, 1 chord, things like that, 6, 4, 1, whatever. And but I think that it's shifting their minds back. And so now when I listen to some of these young gospel musicians, you hear them wanting to apply a little bit of classical sounding music in there, but I don't think they realize it.
Right.
You know, but guys like me, they consider me old school, man. So, but it's all right. It's all right. I'm here to try to help and teach whomever want to listen.
Right.
You know.
So I got a
but it is what it is, man.
I got a question for you because I know I kind of dealt with it where it's like, you know, when I first started in church around like 12, 13, I was just purely classical. And then I started playing in church, playing organ, doing, you know, a lot more. And then now what ended up happening is that in every certain circle that I would go in, I'd be labeled with something. So if I'm in the church circle, oh, I'm the classical guy. But if I'm around the classical people, I'm either the gospel or the jazz guy. Jazz people, like, they always throw me in this. And then, like, they were just sometimes, like, because I'm just built that way. Like, I had that, like, yo, you know what? I'm about to show you the business in your own genre. You ain't about to put me in no box. And I came to a place where I realized, yo, you know, God, God has put me in a position where I'm around all these influences for a reason, because now it gives me an opportunity to create something nobody else can create because I have that own personal combination. So did you kind of go through that, like, labeling, oh, you're this, and, you know, people kind of set you in a box, and, you know, like, what was your experience with that?
When I'm around classical musicians, no, I don't get that label. But when I'm around other musicians, jazz musicians, I'm known as a classical pianist or whatever. Same thing in church. Even though I'm in church, I play a little bit of gospel, but I'm still known as Altino Brothers classical musician. So yeah, you do get labeled. Yeah, but I mean, but you're not one dimensional though. You have jazz, you have classical. And highly trained and highly skilled at both. So I'm surprised to hear that, you know, they're labeling you in different ways. You know?
One thing or another. Imagine if you look at people like, yeah. So now let's talk about, you know, what you built with your brother as far as the Altino brothers. Like, what is that for the people who don't know? Like, and give us kind of some of the ideas of the success that you've had with that.
Yeah. So the Altino brothers started because of my mother. We both my brother and I both got our masters from the Manhattan School of Music. We actually attended MSM together and graduated together. So the goal was each of us were going to go our separate ways. Even though we're from one family, we were going to be our own individual entity as concert pianists or whatever. So my mother said, look, you're both Black musicians, Black classical musicians. Your chances at success will be far greater if you do it together rather than alone, because what you have is rare. You don't see that often. So I'm like, okay. So my brother and I started, even we've done piano duets growing up together, but it wasn't something that we took seriously. So after we graduated from MSM, the Altino brothers, you know, became an entity. Interesting, we started with, there were 3 of us, not brothers. There were 3, well, we were at Manhattan School of Music. There were 3 Black pianists in the master's program, actually in the entire classical program.
Right.
And so the 3 of us said, let's do something together after we graduate.
Right.
So we started this thing called 3 Pianos 3 guys on the piano. Yeah. And But after a while, there were, friction between us and the other pianists. So it didn't work out. So that's when my mother said, you guys stick together. So we started that, since then. We gave our first piano duo recital in the early 2000s. I remember what year it was exactly. And we gave an all classical program. I did some Liszt pieces. We closed the program out with Rachmaninoff's 2-piano suite.
Okay.
And there were, the concert, did okay in terms of ticket sales. But several people came up to me and said, I appreciate you guys and this, you're that, but I didn't understand anything that you played.
Yeah.
So my brother and I okay. And we realized the kind of audiences that we were attracting. We didn't necessarily attract classically minded or classically people who appreciate classical music from that standpoint, but they were just supporting us. So we started incorporating other things like doing popular songs and spirituals and gospel songs. We'd arrange them in a classical, not just a classical style, but in a virtuosity, turn into like a piano solo. It's like playing let's play Wait in the Water, something like that. So when we started doing that, the response was just, tremendous.
Yeah.
So people really took to that, but we didn't want to leave the classical foundation behind. We still wanted to play the Rachmaninoff. We still wanted to play Liszt. So we would mix things up. So a typical program for Altino Brothers would be, okay, we'd open up with a piano duet, and then we'd play a classical solo piece, and then we'd play our own arrangements of hymns or spirituals and popular songs. And then we'd do a 2-piano piece, either our own arrangement or a class. So we mix things up, and we found a lot of success with that. We have done, we've toured Europe, we've done China, we've done a lot of the major venues all throughout the United States. We made our Carnegie Hall debut in 2015.
Right.
But we had a big choir as well, that joined us. So
I'm gonna stop you real quick, because I'm not going to let you say, oh, yeah, we toured Europe and we did China and we do Cardi. Like, that's some little thing. That, to me, that's massive. Haitian boy, import from Haiti, touring Europe. Like, to me, me who understands the culture, right? I remember when I went to France to study for a month classically, right? And I played, and then my French teacher said something to me, because when I played, I did it was a Beethoven sonata I did. I can't remember which one it was, but when I finished, I ended up getting a standing ovation. And then my teacher came up to me, he said something along the lines of like, now you're doing it for real. And I was like, what do you mean by that? He's like, now you're around people who understand this and they know to listen for. And so now when you get this circle and you can, put on a show, you're doing it for real. When
the fact they got a standing ovation, that speaks volumes. It's not just people who are looking at you like, oh, his hands move so fast.
Right.
And they said it's a bravo before you even finish the piece.
Right.
These are people who actually know how to listen, and they give you that. That's major.
So how do you even? How does the Europe tour? And I'm not even gonna lie to you. Like, for me personally, China's intimidating, because if you're talking about where they make. That Europe is a level. China's like, listen, you know what you for this. So how does that even come up? Like, how did that come together?
We had a manager. Who had connections and booked those things for us at the time. So I remember actually China. I went to China alone. My brother didn't go to China, and that was quite an experience. I was there for a month.
Wow.
I don't remember how many concerts I played, but there were times I was playing 2 recitals a day.
Wow.
Yeah, so in a month, I can't even remember how many concerts I played, to be honest with you, but it was a lot. And the Chinese audience was different, man. And they were, I mixed things up the same way. I didn't just play, classical pieces. Of course, they love the classical pieces, but I remember I performed at a music school over there, one recital, and I did Liszt Mephisto Waltz. And at the same time, I did my arrangement of Wade in the Water, Sweet Sweet Chariot.
Yeah.
Afterwards, people were coming up to me wanting to know what that was. I mean, you know this. the Chinese, their music a lot of times is based on the pentatonic scale.
That's right. Yeah.
So or the spiritual. So
That's
they heard that sound,
yeah,
and they responded to it in a way I didn't imagine, man. It was really something special. Really something special. So yeah, so that audience, that was intimidating. That was intimidating because it not only, just the regular audience, the students, they know.
yeah.
They listen. You got people like Lung Lung and Use the One coming from over
Right,
there.
right.
So that's what they're comparing you to.
That's right.
So it's like, man, that could be a scary thing, but it worked out for me, man. It really worked out for me. The tour was successful, and I'm just grateful that I had that opportunity.
And so now, after these 2 tours, you got Carnegie. I'm not even gonna lie,
Yeah.
bro. When I seen you putting that on, I was in Florida cheering my butt off, man. I wish I could have come, but New York flights and all that nonsense. I was like,
yeah, I know.
how does Carnegie come together? Like, what was the idea? How did that manifest?
The idea was, it was something, after I finished school in the early 2000s, I created a list of 100 goals that I wanted to accomplish in life.
Yeah.
And Carnegie Hall was one of them.
Yeah.
In 2011, I met this manager / publicist who decided to manage my brother and I.
Yeah.
And she was having us fly all over the country doing concerts, but I told her that I wanted to expand because the thing is, she put us in front of a gospel audience.
Okay.
Like we went to, I forget the gospel awards name. You may remember, but she had us doing things like that, and sometimes the audiences were responsive. Sometimes it was like lukewarm. I mean, we didn't get booed in any place, but you could tell they didn't really understand what we had to offer. So I told her, I said, look, we need to expand. So in order to expand, I think we should do a big concert at Carnegie Hall so that we get the exposure that we need so that we could expand and do other tours. And she said, well, you guys aren't ready for Carnegie Hall yet. You need to, create an audience base and things like that. I said, look, we have an audience base in New York. We could sell Carnegie. She wasn't going for it. But anyway, eventually, we parted ways with her. And after that, it took me about 3 years to put it together. But I told my brother, we're going to do Carnegie ourselves. And Oakwood Aeolian Choir was one of the choirs that I really admire because their sound was similar to our own Altino Brothers chorale. Yeah. So I said, let's combine those 2 choirs together. So I called up the director. I told him, I told him the idea. I don't think he believed me though. Told him we're gonna make this happen. But he's just like, yeah. Okay, cool. But once we confirmed Carnegie, I went to them and told them, of the idea. I said, okay. They were open to it, and we were able to book the venue. Yeah. So we got the Aeolians combined with the Altino chorale, and I wrote a piano concerto for 2 pianos for that, based on a battle hymn of the Republic. Yeah. And it features 2 pianos, full orchestra, choir, and a soprano soloist. And that piece closed out the program. Wow. So Carnegie was a huge success. We sold about 95% of the whole. And I mean, it was just probably the highlight of my career, man. It really was something special.
That's awesome. And so one thing I've definitely seen, from you is that you are not just a great musician, you also are a great businessman. Where did you, because I see a lot of musicians make that mistake. So where did you start to learn the difference, and how did you grow in your business acumen?
Mm-hmm. Well, number one, I've always made it a priority to educate myself in business. I took business courses even outside college to understand business. And at MSM, they offered a music and business class as an elective. I made sure to take that class before I graduated. Mm-hmm. So I've always seen myself, I'm not waiting around for managers and agents and concert promoters to call me. So I'm going to use my own approach. So I when we first started, most times I would book my own venue and create a budget, and I'd use my own money. Mm-hmm. My brother and I, we use our own money, and we book these venues, and we sell tickets ourselves. And it's from there we started growing, and then then agents and concert promoters started calling us to do concerts elsewhere. So we didn't always make a profit, but at the same time we were building a brand. So I don't believe that stigma that they say, you know, musicians are broke. But like you said, if you work hard at what you do, good musicians aren't broke. Right. So, but we have to be business minded. I've always had an entrepreneur mindset. So I would calculate, okay, how can I make a profit here, a profit there, and think of ways to continuously earn a living. Yeah. As a musician. So my brother and I, we had a music school, although I'm not doing a whole lot of teaching right now because I just started a minister of music position at a church in Jersey. Right. But you got to be an entrepreneur, man, as a musician, because, you know, especially in this day and age, things are constantly changing. Yeah. So I believe that a musician should have at least 3 to 4 sources of income. You have to have that, because things may not work out where you could be in a situation where your churches let you go, or concerts aren't coming, like what happened to, you know, during COVID. Right. When COVID happened, everything fell apart for me. Yeah. Everything fell apart. Yeah. We had tours booked. All those concerts got canceled. I was music director at an AME church. Yeah. I was let go because they let go of staff at COVID. Yeah. Even my SDA church, where I also earn a salary, they had to reduce my salary to a stipend. Wow. During the pandemic. So here I am making, like, bro, maybe $300-400 a week during the early, when the pandemic broke out. Thank God, you know, I'm blessed with a wife who has done very well for herself. So she kept it together for me. Yeah. And supported us. And then, so what I started doing now, my brother and I saw in the music school, so we shift over to online teaching. So I built the music school like that, and I, you know, was able to attract a lot of students. So at the height of the pandemic, I started doing well again because of that music school, and plus my home church, you know, gave me back at least, you know, some of my salary. Right. And so I was, at that point, I had like 2 sources of income, even though I wasn't doing any concerts and things like that. But I started doing better. Right. Not what I was doing before, but I was able to you know, sustain myself. Yeah. You know, so, and eventually things started picking up again. But you've got to have an entrepreneurial mindset, man, because you can't rely on just one aspect of it with entities like churches or concert venues or whatever to earn a living as a musician. You've got to have multiple sources of income. That's really important. Right. Really important.
So I got a question for you, because you know, I mean, you know, we all grew up SDA, and listen, that's one denomination when it comes to music. I love it, man. I'm gonna just say it straight. I'm my father's son. They stingy, and they really do not value music and musicians the way they should. And it's the culture, and I get it, and I understand how the system and the finances work. But you know, like, even for me, you know, I mean, the spot that I'm at, I could definitely say that I'm blessed, you know, to be there. It's an awesome environment, and they actually do value music over there. But if I had to be honest with myself, it's like what keeps me there is not so much the finances, but it's just more so like the environment, playing with good musicians, and just, you know, like at this point in my life right now, my Sunday spot is a lot more traditional, conservative. So I wouldn't really get to do more of those gospel, stronger stuff. So I do that because, again, the environment, and also keeps me playing that current music. Right. So with you, who's having, you know, so much massive success, and someone can argue that the logical thing would be like, you know, hey, you know, focus more on your career and your thing instead of doing the church thing. What kept you in church? What keeps you still contributing your talents to church?
You know, I'm gonna tell you a story, man. I made a deal with God. Yeah. When I was in college, I actually left church. That's one of the reasons too I quit playing the organ. Okay. When I got to college, I left church, and became, even though I was going to a Christian college, I was an atheist. I didn't believe in God. I didn't want anything to do with it at all. Yeah. So I also had a very wild life. I was bullied when I first came to the States as a Haitian. Yeah. So when I got to my last year junior high school, onto high school and beyond, I ran the streets. So I encountered a lot of fights. I even broke my hand in a street fight. Anyway, when I was 23 years old, my cousin and I got into a street fight where a guy, it was over a traffic dispute. We pull up at a gas station. Next thing you know, we were surrounded by a bunch of guys, Hispanics. And a fight broke out, and the guy, one of them pulled out a gun, was trying to shoot me. I just remember when I saw the gun, and at the time I was not going to church, I said, Lord, if you get me out of this situation, I promise I'm going back to church. I promise I'm going back to church. And to make a long story short, we did get out of the situation. The guy was trying to shoot me, and he was aiming the gun. He's telling his friends to move out the way to shoot the gun. He couldn't shoot the gun because his friends were in the way. Right. They were jumping my cousin and I. Anyway, somehow my cousin and I defended ourselves. I mean, this is nothing to brag about. It's not something I'm proud of, but I ended up putting the guy in a coma. Yeah. With a 2x4 that one of his friends had dropped. Yeah. And I got arrested, caught an assault case, but we beat the case because people came forward and said that they were defending themselves. Right. But anyway, once we got out of that, I went back to church and never left again. So at that point, I said, you know what? God got me out of the situation. So what I'm going to do now is use my gifts to serve him. That's right. Even though my goal is to become a concert musician, but ministry has to be a part of it, because I made that deal with God, and things worked out better for me that way. All right, because I don't think I'd be where I am if I didn't go back to church. So I've been in church since then, and while you're a concert musician, you have that mindset, but I also look at it, even when you're on a concert stage, you're still ministering to people. Right. And this is the reason why when people came and said, well, I didn't understand the thing that you guys were playing, and we shift over to including religious songs into our concerts, it worked out better, because now we're not just playing Beethoven and Chopin for everybody. We're able to play Amazing Grace. We're able to play, Lord's Prayer and things like that. So while you're entertaining people, you're also ministering to them. So even when we're playing in a secular setting, people was like, wow, I was blessed by that. I remember while in China, I changed one of the pieces at the spur of the moment. I just felt like playing Amazing Grace. I did that. Now, I don't recall anybody at any point where I was in a religious, spiritual setting. People came to me after I did that. I closed out with Amazing Grace. They said they were crying. They had never heard of Amazing Grace, but they said there was something about that song that touched them. Right. And so I'm like, wow, look at that. All right. These aren't Christians. These aren't, religious people. Yeah. But they said there was something about that selection that touched them. So being in church allows me to do things like that. So now I could do things not just to show off virtuosity or musicality, but to minister to people in a way that I don't think I would have been able to do had I not gone back to the church.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So let's just take a small backtrack to your youth, because you actually talk about this a lot on your platforms, about how when you were younger, you used to be on the rougher side of things. Like, what was life like for you at that time? Like, how did that even? Because like when I see you now, I could see like, he ain't the one to mess with, but he saved. He saved, so thank God he saved. So I know it's there, but it's saved.
Yeah, subdued now. Well, it was a rough life, man. I imagine how those hip hop stars grew up, like the 50 Cents of the world.
Yeah,
That's how I grew up in high school. I interestingly, all of my friends were drug dealers. All of my, except me. And the reason why I didn't become a drug dealer is because God blessed me with good church jobs where I was making a lot of money, even as a teen. I mean, imagine being 16 years old, you making $600-700 a week playing on weekends. You don't need to go sell drugs. So because of that, I didn't have to sell drugs, but I was on the corner with them while they were doing it. I'd be in their house and they'd be, preparing their product. And I've witnessed all of that. So all of them were drug dealers. So I encountered a lot of fights. I went to school with a gun every day because New York City in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s was nothing to play with. So I got suspended from school numerous times. I was just getting into a lot of trouble. So, and one of the reasons why I was able to convince my father to let me major in music is because he knew all the things I was going through. And he knew that if I stayed in New York beyond age 18, chances I wouldn't make it out alive. So he knew to just let me do what I wanted, and music was my escape plan to get out of the streets. So I think God gave me this gift for a reason. And the thing about it is, and me starting running the street was because, like I said, I've gotten bullied so much when I was about 10, 11 years old. By the time I was 14, I carried a lot of anger.
Okay.
And I carried a chip on my shoulders because of I've gotten jumped. I've gotten me all because I was different. I was this Haitian kid who dressed different, who spoke differently, and so I became an angry teenager. So I don't know if that was a form of release or therapy, but I just was mad at everybody, man. And the first chance, I never started fights. I didn't start fights, but I always made sure to finish them because, I just remember those days of being bullied, and I just couldn't take it anymore.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
would you say, you go through your life experiences and you change dramatically, but now in this landscape where I think things are more charged racially than ever before, do you still find yourself in situations where now instead of people on the street trying you, it's business partners, it's potential investors kind of looking down at you because of the color of your skin? Like and I know in the classical world there's not that many of us with our skin color that are able to find the success that you've had. So being a Black classical pianist, what has that experience been on just like dealing with the opposition side?
It's an ongoing thing, and I'm sure you can relate to this. There have been times where, I'll tell you one story. We were in Holland, in the Netherlands. We were looking to add another concert to our tour. And we called this large, I don't remember if it was a Catholic church or whatever, and told them we were in town and we would like to add another concert to our program. Would they be willing to have us? And we sent them a CD, a recording, audio recording. And like, well, okay. So we're sitting there, we're arranging the concert, confirming the concert, just about confirmed. We negotiated, everything was arranged. And then they asked, well, you guys have any links of you playing so we could see? I said, yeah, sure. Sent that over. They canceled it. Because now, the thing is, the name Altino, they thought we were Italians. Oh. Once they realized we were Black, they canceled it. They wouldn't say so. They started giving us all types of excuses. Oh, well, something came up. I don't remember exactly what they would say. Something came up or whatever. They canceled it because now they're really, because they still heard Altino. Oh, yeah, sure. So we deal with that. It's a constant thing. That was just one experience I'm describing, but it's on a continuous basis, So I remember when I was at MSM, my piano teacher, who was also the head of the piano department, he robbed me of a scholarship.
Wow.
He robbed me of a scholarship. You know, he robbed me of a scholarship because he said, if you score a certain amount of score on your jury at the end of I was a master's student, so at the end of my first year, he promised me a full scholarship to get in my hands for me. I didn't have a scholarship, but he promised me a full scholarship for my second year if I got a certain amount of score. And not only did I exceeded the score that he promised me, I got the highest score. Me and another Chinese pianist got the highest score of all piano students at that school for the jury. The Chinese pianist, who came from a family of wealth, his parents used to fly to see him to New York in private jet.
Wow.
They gave him a scholarship, full scholarship. And here's where it hurts. There was another young Russian pianist. He and I were sitting down talking, and he said, "What did you get on your jury?" I said, "I got this." And he said, "Oh, I got that." I said, "Wow, okay, pretty impressive." He goes, "Yeah." And they gave me a 90% scholarship. I'm like, what? His score was less than mine. Now, my teacher was the head of the piano department. He determines who gets the scholarships. He gave this white Russian player a 90% scholarship. And me, I had to rely on school loans to pay off for my schooling.
You see?
Yeah.
I remember my experience.
That's what it is, man.
I remember my experience at UCF. Like, with my French teacher when I was doing my bachelor's, it wasn't like that because he was more so French, and just how it wasn't more of a race thing. It was, can you play? Can you not play? And I think just Americans in general annoyed him. So
yeah,
all right, like tripping. But I remember, I'll never forget this. We had an audition for the jazz bands. So now we go in. It's me and these 3 other white pianists. And so you're supposed to play the entire song and then you do a little solo. And I played extremely strong and I outplayed everybody. And even though the still was coming out to me like, yo, that was great, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, so I'm fully expecting that I'm gonna make one of the jazz bands.
Yeah.
All white boys, some who didn't even play properly, who didn't even play correctly, make all of the bands, and I didn't make one. And at first, I was annoyed about it, but what I realized was because I didn't make those bands, it allowed me to create my own band because I was doing my master's.
Yes, sir.
Own band. So now, when I was doing my exit recital, I was able to pull in the guys that I wanted to choose. And when I ended up doing my senior jazz recital, because I had my own guys and my own thing, I was able to do some of the crazy songs that I want to do, like stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with Michelle Camilo, but some stuff.
I watched the recital, bro. I saw it.
Yeah, so that's how
it was phenomenal.
And
phenomenal.
Thank you. And to this day, there's never been a jazz concert that's been more attended or more well received than my joint. So in the moment, it was frustrating because it's like, yo, what's going on? But God has a way of protecting.
Of course, yeah. Yes, he does, man.
All right, so listen, we know as a young musician, you know what I mean, we get a lot of time, we get a lot of attention. Listen, I've been trying to ask you this question like 3 times and we've been dealing with technical difficulties. So I know what you're about to give is needed for the community. So we know later on in the game, you definitely took your time and you married your beautiful wife. But how did you navigate, being a great, popular, well-known, and, you in shape and you a good-looking dude, a good-looking musician in the game, but you never, necessarily, it never imploded you. How did you, as a young, successful musician, navigate, women and interactions with women in church and across the board?
Well, my story is a little bit interesting, man, because I never mixed the two. I partied a lot when I was younger. I lived in the nightclubs. Man, on weekends, that's where I was. So having been in the streets, I dated a certain type of girls. So, and I never mixed the two. Like, I stayed away from the girls of the church because I didn't want to tarnish my reputation per se, in church. So I kept everything out of the church. So the women I dealt with when I was younger, even when I told them I played the piano, they didn't believe me. So I never used that to my advantage. I didn't say, well, I'm Nerva, blah, 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 I play the piano. Never did that to even when I play concerts and things like that, I managed to stay away from those women because I didn't want to mix the two. And to marriage, I never wanted to get married early. Never get married early. Since I was very young, I've always said I wanted to get married no earlier than age 30. So I met my wife in 2004. When she joined my home church, Linden SDA, she became choir director and praise team leader. So I had to work with her. I was dating somebody else at the time, but my wife and I formed a friendship, and eventually that relationship ended, and my wife and I started dating. What separated her from everybody else is the fact that she understood what it was like to date a musician. She herself is a trained singer and classical pianist, even though she don't want anybody to know that, you know, because she quit playing the piano after she married me. She said, I'm married a pianist, but I got to play. So that's her thing. Anyway, so she understood my practice time, and she never felt the need to compete with my music.
Yeah.
So it worked out well for me. She would encourage me. She would even push me. I'm telling you, man, after I married her, I had some success in music. But before I married her, I should say, before I married her, I had some success in music. But after we got married, everything went to another level, man. I mean, tours, Carnegie Hall, and you know, playing in different places. For some reason, my music just took off. Even my finances. Just
hey, I can attest to that, bro. I can attest to that,
man. So I don't think God trusted me as a single man because he knows what the kind of trouble I probably would have gotten myself into. Because I'm the kind of man who believes that once I get married, man, I'm settled. That's it for me. I love being home, even though I'm a very busy musician, and my wife also is a busy career woman. But we make time for each other. We have date nights. We take time to go out to events together. We make time to go out to events together. So we make time for one another. So although we're both very busy people, you know, our marriage and family, those things are important to us. So we do make time for each other. But the thing about it is she allows me to work, especially when I'm in concert mode.
Right.
Does not stress me out and say, well, you're not spending time with the family. You're not spending time with me. You're not blah, blah, blah. She allows me to be in my element without any stress. I believe that a man's home should be his peace.
That's right.
And I am so blessed to have that, man. And I mean, I could not have done any better.
That's right.
Ask for a better partner, a better life partner than what I have right now, man.
God.
So it's a blessing.
Hey, not to put you on the spot, but when you gonna drop the Valentine's Day surprise orchestra concerto for wifey?
You just gave me an idea.
That's it, bro. Hey, just send me a ticket and just put me in the little bottom, inspired by the conversation. I get in on that too. We get a 2-for-1. I throw my wife in there. Yo, man, listen, this conversation has been super dope, and I appreciate you, you know, even working through the technical difficulties, we making it work. Listen, man, you know, for the people out there, there's so many people who look up to you. A matter of fact, you were super instrumental in helping that young man that I helped get the keyboard, right? And he's doing amazingly well. So I just remembered I gotta connect you to maybe do like a little virtual masterclass lesson with you too. But he told me to say thank you so much because that keyboard has really helped him take off. But to continue with that idea, you know, I mean, there's a lot of, you know, young musicians and people out there, not just musicians really, because your impact is so wide, who, you know, look up to you and not necessarily get the opportunity to talk to you and kind of pick your brain. So just to kick off and finish off with a bang, what would you, you know, what would you say to the people?
I want to say to the people, particularly young people, that when you have a goal in mind, pursue it. When God gives you a talent, he gives you that talent for a reason. I think a lot of time we cheat ourselves from doing what we're blessed with naturally. We pursue other things because people are in our ears telling us, well, you need to go make money, you need to do this, you need to do that. If you're musically gifted, be a musician, become a musician.
Right.
If you have a natural affinity for science, you could become a doctor. I mean, if that's what you love, do what you love, and you will never work a day in your life because you love what you do. You have a lot of people, I've seen so many successful people in other fields that are unhappy because they're not really doing what they really want to do. They're naturally gifted in one area, but they're doing something else because of the influences around them that force them to pursue other avenues because of security. But you could create job security with your gifts.
That's right.
You have to be creative, be determined, be dedicated. And if you're a musician, don't just practice. Focus on the business side.
That's right.
Okay. Focus on the business side because it'll all come together, and that's how you'll attain success.
Phenomenal, phenomenal. Listen, everybody, it has been a wonderful episode of SelzSpeaks podcast. Before we go, how can the people get in touch with you? How can they follow you? Give us the socials, the websites, talk to us.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, my brother, Sel, for having me here, man. Really, really an honor to chop it up with you and just discuss life. You know, that whole family, I have looked up to him and his brother for many years. Since I was a little boy, I remember him playing, I told you. So I've looked up to him, and to see you and your sister become who you guys became, I carry that pride too, man. Not just as a Haitian, but just to see the family like yours become what you are. You an inspiration to me and my brother. So thank you for having me here, man.
Praise God.
Y'all could follow us on Instagram at the Altino Brothers, or Facebook, the Altino Brothers. Website is www.thealtinobrothers.com. If you want to get in touch with us, email us altino.bros, BROS, @gmail.com.
Awesome, awesome. Again, thank you so much for your time. You always know when we chop it up, it's always love. We ain't friendship over here. It's family, man. Nothing but family. So shout out to everybody. Again, if you haven't, like, subscribe to keep up with the content. Reach out, follow Nerva, show some love. Yo, I love you all. It's been a wonderful episode of SelzSpeaks. Peace out.